to the True Reform podcast, where the goal and aim is to transform, reimagine, and unite, all towards success and collaboration. I am one of your hosts, Nam Solomon, and today we're going to be talking about addiction, and we have a special guest, and his name. How are you doing today, Kenneth? You doing good?
I'm
Well,
doing good.
um, why don't we start off? Just tell us a little bit about yourself. It's kind of like an interview question, right?
Yeah,
Tell,
yeah,
tell us
yeah.
about
Well, I want to thank you guys first off for having me on the show.
you. Absolutely.
I'm I don't know what to say. Well, I'm Kenneth Taylor. I I'm retired auto worker. I've been sober for 35 years,
Mm,
and now I'm in school. Yeah, I'm studying social work, working
that's
on my BSW.
that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard, but I'm getting through it.
Yeah.
Getting through it.
Okay. So you definitely have any children? You got any grandkids? Any?
Yeah, I got two kids, a son and a daughter. I got seven grandkids, four here in Toledo and three in Atlanta.
No. So that's definitely amazing. So when I first found out about you, I was very interested. 'Cause I saw you were speaking with Armstrong, and I was like, wow, this guy's really intriguing. I would definitely like to talk to him. And one thing about this podcast, we like to talk about real issues, especially in the justice involved, but it's not only held to that area. I think it's important to showcase how things can be connected and how people can learn from people's experience. Because think about it, it was a blessing that even though you didn't end up incarcerated, there could have been situations where that was the case, um, and it wasn't. And so your story was very intriguing, and I guess I would like to kind of start like how did everything begin with you? How did everything start?
Well, I started using when I was 13. Didn't have too good of a childhood growing up.
Right.
I was in a violent environment. Didn't think that I belonged where I was and didn't like where I was. So I took to the streets. Alcohol and marijuana seemed to make me feel better. So
Mm.
that's what I did, you know. And then I found out there was other things that make me feel better, and
Mm.
that's what I did. And I don't know, before it was all over, I was shooting heroin, and my life just started spiraling. I had opportunities,
Mm.
but I seemed to blow them because of the way that I was living. You
Mm.
know, uh, I had a good job in the auto industry, and I lost that. You know, had a family,
Mm.
lost that.
Mm.
And I ended up homeless. Yeah. I was homeless for about 6 months. I was in treatment. And after treatment, after I got out the homeless shelter, things started picking up. It started getting better because I wasn't using anymore. And I had people that I could talk to.
Mm.
You know, one of the things that was going on during my childhood is I didn't have anybody to talk to give me any kind of direction. So I did what the folks in the streets did, and that was get high and whatever it took to get high. That's pretty much my story. After I got sober, things started to change. I ended up getting my job back. This guy, when they fired me, they told me I'd never work there again. And after I got sober for about 6 months or so, I decided I'd go back and just see if I could get my job. And they liked what I had to say and gave me my job back. I ended up retiring from that place. But see, I wasn't doing the same things that I was doing. My perspective on
That's right.
life changed, and I handle things in a different manner.
When you went to treatment, the first and only time you went to treatment, or have you been to treatment in the past?
No, I had been to treatment 3 times. I got kicked out of two treatment centers in one weekend. I had a bad attitude, and I had a
That
bad attitude. They didn't
right,
know how to deal with it.
right,
The
right.
last treatment center I went to, they knew how to deal with my attitude. They helped me out a whole lot.
Mm. So do
I
you
went,
feel like them or you?
pardon me?
Do you think it was them or you that made? for the betterment of your life.
I think it was them that had an impact,
Interesting.
because I was there a couple of weeks, and they called me in the office and they said, it seems like you want us to kick you out, but we're not going to do that
Hmm.
because we love you too much. That threw me for a loop, man, because I ain't never experienced, nobody ever told me anything like that before. And yeah, it had an impact on me. Because see, every other place I went,
So,
they kicked me out.
so Kenneth, one thing that you were talking about in your journey is kind of like not having anybody to
Hmm.
talk to, right? Kind of hearing that perspective from folks who are there to be able to provide that treatment. How'd you receive it when they were like, "Hey, listen, it's like you want us to kick you out, but we're not going to do that, right? Like we want to see you be successful." How'd you receive that as a person who kind of not didn't necessarily have folks to be able to kind of share positive messages with you growing
At
up?
first, I didn't know how to take it because it was just foreign to me. I didn't, it threw me for a loop, and it was like somebody cares, you
Mm.
know. And I guess all my life I wanted somebody to care about my well-being, and I didn't see it happening. But
Mm.
these people tell me they care. They're willing to help, and I really wanted to get and stay sober. I didn't know if I could. I didn't, I went into it blindly. I just knew that I needed
Mm.
help, and that was probably my last stop. If that hadn't worked,
Mm.
I wouldn't be here talking to you today.
So, in the past, you worked in the automotive industry. What did you know in the automotive industry?
I built Jeeps. I worked
Okay.
in a Jeep factory.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to get me a Jeep. You
Is
know who to
that
call?
right? Hey.
Who like a nice Jeep? Those Jeeps get when the tires. Look, the Saharas. I like those. I like
Yeah.
those.
Yeah, that's not.
I guess my question is, how were you able to perform, or were you able to perform and use at the same time? And when did it catch up with you when you weren't able to keep a job or you weren't able to keep your position?
Oh, I was able to do my job while I was getting high. It was just my attitude. I lost a company a few $100,000 because I got violent up in there, you
Mm.
know, and ambulance had to come and, I
Kenneth,
bust a guy.
you
Hmm?
beat somebody up, Kenneth? What happened?
Yeah, this guy was playing with me, right? And
Yeah.
I'm like, and it's on a Monday. I done spent all my money. I'm broke. I ain't even got lunch. Matter of fact, I'm lying to the cafeteria that I got money lost in the machine so I can get something to eat, right? And this guy's playing with my job. He likes to play. And I didn't mind playing every now and then, but this particular day, I wouldn't own it. And he wouldn't stop. So I said, next time he do, I'm gonna bust him in his head. And he did it again. So I bust him in his head.
Mm.
Chased him around the plant with a steel rod, and the line had stopped and they lost a lot of money. But I didn't even think about that. I was reactive, and they called me in the office. Of course, they had told me before that if I didn't get no help, they was going to fire me. I didn't get no help. And they called me in the office and said, you'll never work here again.
You know what's interesting about this that though, it sounds like even kind of listen to you saying they allowed you to come back. It sounds like you're from like a work ethic standpoint, like you had like the work ethic of the kind of
Mm.
person that'd be successful, right? Like you showed up on time, you did everything that you were supposed to do, nothing stood in your way except for the attitude perspective. When did you start to see a change in your attitude?
While I was in treatment and in the homeless shelter, after they told me that they loved me, that facilitated a change right there. So now it calmed me down and I got into the program. You know, I went to every seminar they had. I watched every movie that they had that was pertaining to alcohol and drug abuse. So I really got into it.
Mm.
It didn't change a whole lot, but it kept me sober. You
Mm.
know, it took a while for that attitude
Mm.
to really kick in. But I found that by doing
Okay.
that, it gave me a different perspective. And I guess that's what I needed to see things in a different light. And then when I got out, I started going to AA,
Mm.
started going to 12-step program. and that helped out tremendously, you
Mm.
know, because then there's a lot of people that I could talk to that had been where I was and they found a way up and out, and I wanted to know. I wanted to know how they did it, and they told me. They told me what it was I needed to do. I did it. Things started changing. I ended up with my job back, you know, and really get my family back. You know, it's a lot of things that I had lost that I didn't get back, but it was okay. It got to the
Mm.
point where it was okay. I used to walk by or ride by my house, man, that got foreclosed on because I lost my job, and I would cry
Mm.
because, you know, it just didn't make sense to me,
Mm.
you know, and they helped me get through that. First thing they told me was quit riding by that house.
So start.
And I often find this from my experiences, not often, but sometimes you were able to keep your job, you know, while you use, so it wasn't hindering your job. You said you had an attitude problem, which is a personal thing. I can only assume that the abuse made it worse. But how did you, in your mind, find a way to turn off that noise, which I'm sure was there? Like, I can get high and do my job. I could do all of this without, it's not the drugs. When did you get to that point? Like, how did that happen? Because that's difficult. You're a star. In my opinion, for them, after you done ran around and busted that kid's head open, and they still wanted to keep you, they clearly worth
You know something,
you're
right?
worth staying. So it's like you were good at your job. Why you? When did that thing turn off? Where it's like I actually can't do this because it's actually hindering me. Because what you said is that I kept my job. You had the attitude problem. I'm sure that made things worse. And I'm sure there's other situations. But what really made you like turn that noise off or that voice?
No, because I had the job and I was doing the job. I went to work, you know, but after I got off work, you know, I had a family to take care of
Mm,
that I wasn't, you
mm,
know, I wasn't taking care of that family. And it bothered me, you know, and but I couldn't stop. You know,
mm,
I tried all kinds of ways to slow down, you know, or not do as much, not spend as much money. You know, I put part of my money in my sock, and I put the part I was going to use in the other sock. And I said, but when I use this sock up, you
right.
know, I'm going home. But I
Oh,
didn't get home till both socks was empty.
mm,
You know, now they can't eat. You know, and yeah, that that bothered me. It wasn't that I didn't want to provide for my family, but it seemed like I couldn't. You know,
do you think this is you know trying to put it together? So, do you think that maybe the job and you doing well there brought you income, and because you were using, it was a way for you to like fund your addiction, and that's all that mattered to you? How does that cycle sound?
yeah, that's what it was. That's what it was. It was
Mm.
like I couldn't not do it. You know, I had
Mm.
gotten so far in. I mean, I started at 13 years old, so you know, it's just been a pattern, you know, throughout my life. I got caught up. You know, the drug took me. I got addicted,
Mm.
and addiction isn't
Yeah.
don't have nothing to do with willpower. You
Mm,
know, I found out that it has everything
That's
to
very
do
important.
with God power. You know.
So I was going to ask that, right? Because a lot of times people misunderstand how
mm,
addiction drives you, right? Like talk like when you think about your understanding of what it's doing to yourself, and it's not like it's what I want to do, right? It's something in you that kind of drives you towards that, right? Like what was that experience like for you, right? Just recognizing that you got a family, you got a job, you trying to kind of do right, you trying to do better than kind of what it was for you kind of growing up. What was that voice like that kind of pulled you always back in, if that makes sense? Like what was that like for you? Because as a person who work around folks that are in the process of recovery, I've never specifically been on myself specifically with drugs, other things I have been addicted to. But what was that like for you, right? Like what was that like kind of pulling you
Well,
back
it
into it?
was. it got to the point where it's normal for me to do, and if I didn't do it, I didn't feel good. You know, it was
Mhm.
like when I woke up in the morning, you know, it was like I was obsessed. I was obsessed with getting that first one, and after I got that first one, then all I wanted to do, it, what it actually was like I wanted to, once I got that first one in me, I wanted to keep that feeling for the rest of my life,
Mm,
you know, continuously.
mm.
You know, in order to do that, you gotta keep feeding it, keep feeding it, keep feeding it, and then you can't stop and you can't not want to feed it. You know, it takes over your mind and body.
So let's get specific.
Yes.
How long would it last after use? How long, like if you were at work, how long get that feeling before you needed to, re-up, before you needed to use it?
Oh, a few hours. Yeah, a few hours.
Gotcha.
Maybe you want to
What
stop.
made me want to, you know, a guy had asked me, a guy I got high with. We were in this abandoned building, and where we had to go up the steps to do what we wanted to do because we wanted to get away from everybody. And the steps were
Hmm.
in such a condition where we didn't know if we was gonna fall through. But
Okay.
we went up there anyway, you know. And he asked me, he said, Kenneth, you think we were destined to live like this? And I had to think about it, you know, and I thought about it and I was like, no, I don't think I was destined to live like this. I'm gonna quit. I don't know when and I don't know how, but I'm
Hmm.
gonna quit. And a week later I was in a treatment.
Even in the midst of all of that, you could still see that there is a better life for you, right? Like when I hear you talk about it, it seemed like the addiction itself was all consuming, but even in the midst of that, you still seem like a
I
better
had
life
a glimmer
for
of hope.
yourself.
And that's all it
Wow,
was, just a glimmer of hope, you know. I wasn't sure. I didn't know. I just knew that for a while I didn't want to live like that. But, you know, I could not live like that. It was
man.
actually a social worker that got me into treatment because I went to a psychiatrist and I told him, you know, my story because I
Mhm.
wanted some help. And he said, well, I don't know what to tell you. And I'm
Hmm.
like, wow. So a psychiatrist tells me he don't
Oh,
know what to tell me. It's like all my hope is gone. But then he said, I know somebody who might be able to help you. Hooked
Hmm.
me up with this social
oh,
worker, and she said, yeah, I'll get you in treatment. And she'd get a bed for me, and I'd buy a bus ticket. And I said, well, you know, I'm gonna get one more before I go, and end up going back to Greyhound and selling that bus ticket back. You know, I did that about 3 times. But this last time, I told my mom I really want to do it, but I ain't got no money.
mm,
And so she said, I'll get you a bus ticket. She gave the money to my ex-wife to get the ticket, and she said, don't give him the ticket. When it came time to go, she took me down to the bus station. I got on the bus. She got on the bus behind me and gave the driver the ticket and said, under no uncertain terms, do you let him off this bus. And she sat there till the bus pulled off, and she pulled out behind it. And when it got on the freeway, you know, she turned off. And at that moment, I felt like I was gonna be okay. But I ain't know, but I just felt like I was gonna be okay, you know, and I went through the withdrawals. I didn't I cold turkey. They wanted to give me methadone. I said no, because you know, I'd been sober 5 days.
What was that
And
like? Cold turkey?
grueling, man. It was grueling.
The
Because when I told him, because I didn't feel no symptoms, you know, by the time I got there, and I figured 5 days, you know, I ought to be cool. He said, yeah, but you'll want it before it's over. And when it's
mm,
kicked in, I go to the doctor and I said, I'll take it now. He said, you know how you hear people say, man, I was in so much pain, I was climbing the walls. know what they mean because
Mm.
I was actually trying to climb the wall because the pain was so intense,
So
in my head,
so all day?
huh?
Is it all
All
day?
day, all day. And then the next day I was okay. I used that today because I don't never want to forget it because I know that if I go
Mm.
back, I got to go back through that again. Man, look, I ain't trying to do that. The only thing that has happened worse than that was having kidney stones.
I heard about that. If it's anything
And
like
kidney,
that, I'm sorry.
man, I thought I was gonna die.
When you realize that you had kidney
Oh, this
stones.
was last year. I had kidney
Oh,
stones. Yeah, that was rough. That
yeah.
was rough. But I got through that. I
You're
don't want to go
resilient.
through it again. Hey, I wouldn't
So
wish that on anybody, man.
earlier, you said something that I really resonate with, and I live by it. And we all go through things in life. We have different stories. We have different, you know, as long as we're in this life, there's going to be ups and downs. And as you're younger, you do things, you go through things, and you find a better way. And I've learned that you got to learn to live with regrets, right? There's a lot of things that you were able to get back, and there's some things that you weren't able to. And sadly, I always say that like you can't get time back. You can't get. There's some things that will never be the same, and we have to be okay with that. And you mentioned family. What was it like, as you're going through, you know, your addiction at the peak, when it came to your family life? Because you said you weren't there for them, and I can only imagine what that might have been like. As it was happening, how did it feel for you versus after when you actually you know, recovered and recovery?
It was shameful. I felt nothing but shame because here it is. I'm a man. I got a family that I can't provide for. I got the resources to provide for them, but I can't provide for them. That's a heartening thing, man. And then you use drugs to get it out your head. But then when you come down, you're still faced with the same thing. So you use drugs to get it out your head.
Mm.
And then when I got sober, I did everything that I could to become the man that I was supposed to, take up my responsibilities, and damage was done.
Mm.
You know, ain't nothing I can do to repair. Well, it's just like there's nothing my parents could do to repair the damage that was done to me, you
Mm.
know. And I had to come to the conclusion as far as how I was raised was, my parents did the best they could with what they had.
Mhm.
My parents were sharecroppers,
Mm.
and my great grandfather was a slave. So that kind of carried through. They talk about generational curses, and I
Mm,
see that. I understand that today. So it was easy for me to forget him.
Mm.
But
How about yourself?
yeah,
Right? Like when I think about like that transition for you, what you expected versus kind of what you end up dealing with versus where you are now, right? What
it
about
was
self
hard.
forgiveness?
I mean, because how can I forgive myself for the things that I'd done to other people? It just didn't make sense to me. That's where other people came in to help me get through it, even though it took a while. Because I still carry some of that shame. you know, but it's at the point now where I'm taking care of my responsibilities. You know, my son, he was 5 years old when I got sober, so he don't remember. The only thing he knows about how it was for me was from what other people have told him.
Mm.
But then the experience
Mhm.
that he's had with me makes it hard for him to believe that his daddy was like that. Now my daughter, she's seen it all, you
Mm.
know, so it was a little harder. But I'm back in their lives.
Mm.
They know I love them, and
Mm.
they know I'll do anything for them, and I
Mm.
have, because I'm their daddy. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have any problems with taking up my responsibilities once I got sober, because I felt that that's what I was supposed to be doing anyway.
Mm.
So I don't look on pat for a pat on the back because people say, "Oh man, I'm proud of you. You're doing." I can't pat myself on the back for doing something I should have been doing all along. But
But give yourself grace because you come a long way. You
I
come,
acknowledge that. I
yeah, give yourself
acknowledge the fact that I'm not that same guy anymore, and I also acknowledge the fact that I can be.
a great. Go
So,
ahead, Marcus.
oh,
That's go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. No, so like I was going to ask about that, right? Like, do you find yourself in a space where that other perspective of who you are, the other side of you is always not too far away, right? Like, can you always see this person as, listen, I got to really be mindful of what I'm doing because I can go back to this person if I slip, if I make a wrong turn, if I do something wrong, I can go back to this person and I understand what their life looks
Yeah,
like.
yeah. I mean, it is right there. I wake up in the morning. Every morning I wake up, I remind myself I'm an addict, and I'm not a practicing addict. And if I don't want to pick up, there's some things I gotta do. You
Mm.
know, I gotta deal with life as I gotta deal with the cards that I'm dealt. And I know that I only know a little, so I need other people in my life
Mm.
to give me at least give me the information that I need, to give
Mm.
me advice on things that I need to do to handle whatever situation that I may be faced with. You know, I'm learning, but I'm not perfect, and I understand that. And my belief is that God knows I ain't perfect, but He knows where my heart is.
Mm.
So I don't look down on myself. When I
Good.
make mistakes, it's like, okay, I made a mistake. I learned something from it. Let me keep moving. Like Doug Williams say, he said, sometimes you're gonna hit that, you're gonna get down, but you got to get up off that turf. And that's what I do. You know, I get up and I keep going.
Oh, amazing. And adding to that, it's kind of a two-part question. I feel like this. I think I know the answer, but sometimes you never know. Do you still get the urge to use? And when you do, what do you do that prevents it?
No, I don't get the urge to use it. And the reason why I say that is because I look at that urge as meaning something else.
Mm.
Doesn't mean that I need to use.
Mm.
It means that I need to talk to somebody,
Mm.
and I come across that simply because they used to tell you, get phone numbers and call people and carry on. Well, I got phone numbers, I ain't calling nobody. But when I was going through something, and I was like, oh no, if I keep on with how I'm feeling, I know what I'm gonna do. And I said, oh, but they say call people. So I got my list out and I started calling folks. This is like on Christmas Eve. I started calling people and I got down to this one name, and this guy I didn't like. It's like I had told somebody that if he said anything else to me, I was just gonna jump on him.
Well, he was in the AA group.
Huh?
He was in the AA group.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I skipped his name and I went down to the last number, and nobody was there. It's Christmas Eve, folks with their families or shopping or something. So I'm like, well, yeah, I'll call him.
Mm.
So I called him, and I told him I was not feeling too great, and I didn't even get a chance to talk about what it was that I was going through. He just said, "Hold on, man, I'm coming get you."
Wow.
He came, got me, and we hung out. When I got home, and we never talked about it. We just kicked it. And when I got home, I ain't had that feeling no more.
That's
So I
amazing.
said, I know now. That feeling means that I need to call somebody. It don't mean that I need to pick up. See, it's transference, and it works, you know. So anytime I'm going through something, that's what I do. And I look at it today as all problems have solutions.
Right.
The only reason why I haven't come to the solution is
Right.
because I ain't looking for it.
Mm.
So I'm always looking for the solutions because I don't know everything.
Nobody does. Wow.
A lot of people think they do.
That's the I'm noticing the connection, and I think that as I've been hearing you from the beginning, you know, man, communication. When we first talked to you, man, you know, when I was young, I didn't have anybody to talk to, and that's why you started using it to begin with. And then it comes full circle, and you got that feeling you needed someone to talk to, and I think we all need somebody to talk to.
I can tell you another
And
thing too. When I was a kid, my mom took me to a psychiatrist. Now, the code at home is what's happening in the house
Mm,
stays in the
stays in the
house. So
house.
she takes me to the psychiatrist, and I'm sitting in the office and he's asking me to talk about what's going on. And I'm saying to myself, I can't tell this guy because what's going on is what's happening in the house.
mm,
So I sat there for 3 weeks. Finally, he calls my mom in the office and say, I can't help this kid
mm,
because he won't talk.
Here's what's so interesting to me about the story. When I'm thinking about kind of just talking about what Nam was just talking about, how you grew up not having somebody to talk to, right? And then you turn to the life of addiction, and then now you're in a space of recovery, and you need to be able to reach out to somebody. How did you not lose hope in people, right? Like just like understanding what you went through and kind of how it kind of sent you down this pathway. How'd you not lose hope? Like how do you still reach out, understanding what it meant for you at an early age when no one else is there? How do you keep yourself from believing nobody cares, man? Nobody's here for me, right? It's just me by myself. How do you keep yourself from
Well,
falling
it
into that
started with
cycle?
that. It started with that social worker first off.
Long
Who
time
who
ago.
helped me, who stayed with me, even though that I
mm,
would get a bed and then I didn't take it. Then I get a bed, then I didn't take it. But she didn't give up on me. Then when I got into treatment, when they thought that I wanted to get kicked out and they told me they're not gonna kick me out. I mean, these things this started things in motion. I'm starting to feel and see, and even though it's strange and alien to me, but it had a positive effect. And then I go to my first meeting and I'm hearing people sharing and they're sharing my story. And I'm like, no, something ain't right here. Somebody that came in here and told these people about me before I
mm,
got to the meeting, and excuse my language, but I got up and I said, this is bullshit, and walked out the door, because I'm figuring ain't nobody been through what I've been through.
mm,
So, and if they talking about what I've been through and ain't nobody else been through it, somebody told. And I walked out and
Mm,
an old guy came out behind me and asked me what the problem was. And I told him. He said, he laughed. I ain't like that either. you know, he laughed. He said, man, they talk about themselves. And if it touched you, that means you related to it. Then he
mm,
asked me a question. He said, who knew you was coming to this meeting? Well, I ain't tell nobody. So he made me think, okay. So
yep.
I ain't tell nobody. So how did somebody come in here and tell them about me and nobody knew I was coming there? Oh yeah, I felt stupid. So I went back in and I realized that these folks, they have been right where I'm at. The only difference between me and them was that they found a way up and out of their dilemma, and I'm still living in mine. And they're willing to help me get out. So I learned how to go through.
mm.
So I can go through anything. I know beyond a shadow of doubt that whatever it is that I go through, I'm gonna get through it. As long as I put forth the effort. Like Doug Williams say, as long
Mm,
as I can get up off the turf, you know,
mm.
that's inspiring.
Yeah.
I'm telling.
Because like it's a inspirational story because you one of the spaces where I think a lot of people relate to what you're saying is not having people around, right? Like not having people around to be able to support, but it's so encouraging to see how even in the midst of that you were able to take one person and one person turned into two people turned into a group of people, right? And it's like, yo, you know what? People have been through this stuff, right? Like and people are actively trying to become better, and that enhances the inspiration and even maybe even the belief that you got in yourself. So I think one of the things that I'm curious about is, what was it like for you to sit there that first day inside that group, seeing that there's so many other people around you that has been through it, going through it, trying to overcome it? Did you immediately feel connected to them, or were you like, I'm never going to get to where they at?
No,
How was that for you?
I was connected to them, but at the same time, it was like a distant connection. I looked at them as like, well, hell, if they got through it, I can too.
Mm.
You know, I didn't know how much I was gonna need them. I just felt that if I just sit down and just listen to them, that it was gonna be okay and work out like that. I had to talk.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm.
had to talk about what was going on with me.
Right.
Because when I got sober, it was like what I was using, it was like I was running from all my problems. And when I stopped, my problems didn't stop running. So I had all these problems that I had to deal with, and they helped me sort it out. When I came in here, man, I felt like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders because I had all these problems. I had the IRS.
Big problem right there.
Big problem because they gangsters, man.
Yes,
They
sir.
gangsters.
Yes, sir.
They are.
And I,
Man.
I got through it. And when I got through it, I said, I ain't never going through that again. So I do my
Mm-hmm.
taxes. I'm paying my taxes, man. And I had the guilt from my children, and all the other people that I let down. So I had all this remorse and regret and shame. I really didn't want to get around some of my relatives because I felt so much shame. And
So, Ken,
Mm.
what are you doing now?
what am I doing now?
Mhm.
Well, I'm retired. Yeah.
Amazing.
I'm going to school and I'm reaching out to others.
Mm.
I'm trying to help others just like I was helped.
Mm.
That's my main thing, man. Being able to help other people.
Mm.
Which is what prompted me to get into social work. A lot of people that want help, but they don't know how to get to the resources. They don't know where they're at. And it ain't, and the system don't make it easy for us to find, so I want to find out what those resources are and I want to share 'em. I want to help people just like I was helped,
Okay.
and I think that's what it's all about. It's all about people helping people,
That's correct.
you know.
And wait, so what and now? You said your bachelor's. How much longer do you have until you get your
I got
degree?
I got another year to go.
Oh, congrats. You in there.
Yeah, yeah. But
There.
I might take a little longer. I
Well,
don't learn. I'm 68 years old, man. I
yeah.
don't learn like them 18 and 19-year-old kids,
And you learn faster, man. What you
Yeah,
talking about?
faster?
You learn
But you know
No.
what though?
I,
Well, you know what though, Kenny though? You said it. It's just like the guy said, right? You
yeah,
fall, you get back up. You know what I'm saying? One foot
yeah.
in front of the other, right? It's not even about how fast you get there. It's
Yeah.
about whether or not you just
And I
keep
ain't in
moving.
no hurry.
And
right,
Yeah,
right.
I ain't in no hurry.
Yeah. You know,
mm,
one thing I really have enjoyed thus far speaking with you, which I really I feel like I can feel these things. I just feel your authenticity. What happened there? I feel your authenticity.
please.
That's something to me that you can't really practice. You just have to be. And when I hear you speaking, literally, it's like a picture in my mind because it's vivid, and I can tell that you're speaking from a place that's honest. And just typically, when you hear stories like this, I mean, I grew up in the inner city. A lot of not maybe half 60% of the time, there's some sort of justice involvement, prison involvement. That's not the case here, but that doesn't mean it couldn't have been. You know, and I can only assume there might have been some, close calls. But like, how do you view that? Because I know there's many, of your peers that you may have known that ended up, getting involved, going to prison. How did that not happen to you? And what kind of message, would you pretty much say to those that think that, for instance, all people that use end up going to prison, to the extent that you've used? What kind of message can you give? Because you didn't go to prison. But that doesn't mean that there aren't countless others that may be using on a high degree that are not going to prison, that are functioning, that may not have, the family, work-life balance, that are doing other things, but prison isn't it. What kind of message can you give to those that don't understand that and those that are actually getting by right now?
My alternative was death,
Mm,
because of the way that I used, that was it, man.
mm,
That was it. I mean, I feel blessed that I didn't have to experience prison, but
mm,
it ain't like I didn't do anything that could have got me there,
mm.
because I've done some things that could have got me there.
Right,
You know, I'm just blessed that I didn't get caught,
right,
or I was able to wiggle out of it. You
right.
know, I don't, sometimes that's what it takes for
Mm.
people.
Mm,
That's kind of hard to say, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
But it something has to happen for a person to make a person want to make a change.
mm,
What happened for me
Absolutely.
was I didn't want that.
mm.
Speaking of that change, Kenneth, you saying that you want to get into social work. What kind of change are you trying to bring inside of that space? Right? Like, what kind of change are you trying to bring to social work?
I want to fight to level out the playing. I know that's a steep uphill battle, but the playing field is
Mm-hmm.
not even. Even
Mm,
though they try to have you think that it is, it's not equal. You know, it's harder for us to get ahead, but yet and still we can because
Do it.
we see people like us getting ahead. We
mm,
just need to know what they did to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also sounds like we need. I'm thinking about that social worker, right? We need that person that believe
Yeah,
we can do it, right? Like that person that sees a better version of who you can be and pushes you in that direction. And a lot of times, especially when you think about people who in social work that got lived experience, that's how you see it, right? Like you see a person for what they can be, not for who they are, not for what situation they in, but who they can be, right? And that brings a lot of inspiration. Brings a lot of
uh,
inspiration. So when I hear you talk, what I hear you saying is, man, I want to give to other people what was given to me. Somebody somewhere thought I was worthy of a shot. They thought I was worthy of believing in me, regardless of what my experience has been. I want to do that for somebody else.
because if I can do it, and because I don't think that I know better than nobody, I don't think I'm below anybody. I think I'm just mano a mano. You know what
mm.
I'm saying?
Why you're
So
perfect for the job.
yeah.
That's why you're perfect for. That's why you're perfect for the job.
Hmm.
And when you explain that, I think it was a lady or a gentleman, I can't remember, or a group of them that said that they love you, even though you wanted to leave. I think that really goes into us as a people, as a society, doing the things we're called to do, right? If we, and you, everything that you've been through in your life, look at what you're doing. It's a calling. Like, hey, I've been through this. This is what I want to do because I want to. And I just feel like you can't get that type of energy. Like, hey, I don't care if you want to leave. I love you. You can't get that if you're not meant to do this. And I feel
Why would you
like
be in that
you're
space?
meant. I can hear it in you. What you're trying to do, you're not even trying. You're doing. You're meant to do it. And what was done for you, you're gonna do for many.
They showed me love, man, and I learned what love was. And it's so simple, you know. It's so simple to show empathy and love towards your fellow man and the effect that it has on an individual,
Mm,
who has low self-esteem. I
mm,
had very low self-esteem, maybe lower than low,
right.
but for somebody to tell me something like that had a profound effect on me. I look at it I look at it today as God doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. He knew what I needed, and he knew I was ready. And so, when the student vetted, teacher appears, and I had many teachers show up in my life. Thank God. I mean,
You would have made him proud.
How important is it for a person who's going through to be in a position to
Mm.
listen to their teachers?
how
Yeah.
important?
Right? Like listen to what you saying. Yeah, like listen to what you saying when you was like you had a lot of shit show up for you. How important is it for a person to be in a space where they can listen to their
Oh, I
teacher?
think it's very important.
Mm.
I think it's very important to learn how to listen
Mm.
and then listen to learn. Because, we have a
Mm,
lot of noise going on up here, and we have this ego thing
Mm.
where, because the truth, man, is it's a bitter pill, especially when they talk about the truth about you.
Oh.
It's because I want to look at myself as, on that thing. Then for you to try to tell me that I ain't and try to convince me that I ain't, man, it's a task.
Mm.
It's a task. But I see myself today as not being perfect, and so I'm willing to listen, but I want to be better. That's why I listen, because I want to be better. My life's an open book. I'm not ashamed of anything that I do, even if what I do is wrong. I'm not ashamed of it because I need to expose myself. Because if folks don't see it, how can they address it?
Mm.
Or if I don't see it, how can I address it? If I'm in it, I think that whatever it is that I do is the right thing to do until I'm shown that that ain't cool. You show me. I'm open minded enough. I can listen. I might argue with you, but I'm gonna listen and I'm gonna think about what you say.
What would you say? You said that your job, they said you never worked there and they gave you your job back. And I think that, in this country, you know, we have an issue when it comes to, Marcus is the director of, EPS, right? And what he does is help Joes that are just involved get employment and, retain employment. And he guides them through the whole process. And we know that there's a problem with the way the justice involved is viewed, etc. What message would you give to an employer that might be questioning, or may not understand outs, of addiction, of, that lifestyle where people deserve second and third chance, like they all do? What kind of message would you give an employer, just to kind of give them hope, for those that may be struggling currently?
I would say that be patient. Sometimes employees need to lose their job.
Mm-hmm.
Give them something to think about, you know, because if you got a good job and you lose it, because when I lost my job, I had to work for less than 25% of what I was getting before. That make you think, hey, I had this good job right here, and I'm the one that caused myself to lose it. Yeah, I do believe that we should get a second chance, third chance, or but it's up to us to do something with it when we get that chance.
100%.
I mean, when I went back, I tell you, I got sober and I went back and I said, well, I just want to see. I went up there for 2 days. I had my suit and tie on. I had my briefcase. All I had was a pad of paper and a pen. But I looked the part. You know what I'm saying? And the guy, and he might have came out and saw me the first time and walked on by. I don't know, but I stayed there. I went there one day and I stayed there all day, just sitting there. And the second day, the guy come out and he saw me. Now, mind you, I weighed like 98 pounds when he fired me, and I didn't bathe, and I was just a mess. But when he saw me, I weighed I weighed 140 pounds, you know, and and when I was in the homeless shelter, I would work out because they had an exercise room. I would work out with guys, guys that had gotten out of prison,
Yeah.
and they like to work out. So
Yeah.
they took me and and I was working
Gotcha.
out. They was calling me Popeye because I had big forearms. So, I was looking fit. And when this guy saw me, man, he couldn't believe it. He
Wow.
said, Kenny Taylor, is that you? I'm like, yes, sir. So I'm on in my office. In this office, man, we talked for
Whoa.
2 hours
Wow.
about where I was,
Mm.
where I was at the day. And he told me, he said, I'm gonna give you your job back. Now it took 6 months after that for me to get my job back. But in the meantime, I worked little piddly jobs. I even had a job where my ex had called and told him, well, he working at this place, so he need to be paying child support. And they were taking the child support out, man, leaving me with 30,
Mm.
and I kept working. Because at least I could buy cigarettes, and put gas in the car.
Right.
And they laid me off on a Friday. And that evening, Chrysler called me back, and I'm thinking maybe they had called and, because they knew where I was working. Maybe they called to see how I was doing, and maybe they told him that, man, this guy, he working for pennies, and he's still working, and with good spirits, and they
Wow.
called. I started back that Monday,
I
guys.
mentioned, I believe it was ex-wife. I think the lady that there was, I think it was a lady who I'm not sure that was at the rehab facility that was not giving up on you. What is your thought? I don't know. I mean, me personally, man, it's you know women have a special, you know, and even along my journey in life, it's just something about the way a woman can reach out and help. I'm not saying men can't, but how have women been instrumental in your recovery and you getting back to where you wanted to?
What was the question?
How did women? What role did women play in your life to help you get to the place that you wanted to be from where you? Because I heard you
What
reference your ex-wife. I don't know. I mean, but I just crucial times like that bus ticket story, like going down, like I think it was your mom buying the ticket. And I just hear all of these women along the line that stood there, and I find that to often be true. And I just wanted to know if that rang true for you.
I never thought about that. But then when I look, they were women, that really helped, starting with the social worker, my mom, and yeah, my ex-wife played some girl, yeah.
Just during crucial times, you can't, you can't definitely discredit that. But just, I just noticed that. And it's just shout out to all women, man, because women are special. I ain't gonna lie, I don't know what, I don't even know if it's worth living without them, So,
Okay.
yeah, shout out to all the women. But, Marcus, anything, I want to respect your time. We're almost, at an hour. Marcus, is there anything you would like to say, before we close?
I mean, you inspirational, man.
Kenny's the
Like,
coolest.
like, just not only just your voice, but just also the fact that you could hear that you made peace with your journey. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I know we're going to close, but just any thoughts or feedback or advice you want to give to people who don't see themselves as who they can be, but who they are, right? Like, so many people inside of our lives see us for who we can be, but sometimes we don't see that for ourselves, right? Like, any words you want to give to people who can't see themselves as the best version of themselves?
I don't know. I guess I could say, try to be the very best you can be,
That's all you can do.
and
All you
and
can do.
and you'll realize what your potential is. I still haven't realized my full potential. I just know I got potential. That's one thing I found out, when I got so I got potential.
Imagine if I built
And I said that after I looked up the word, after I
right,
found out what potential was, I got potential.
right.
And yeah, I see it today because this journey that I'm on, man, is adventurous and it's enlightening, you know.
Wow.
I want to say one last thing, Ken, before we close. I think another great message that you send is, you're 69 years young, but
68. Don't add no years on it.
I'm sorry, 68 years young, and I think there's this misconception that people think that, after a certain time, you can't reinvent yourself, you can't change, you can't better yourself. And I just feel like when I'm talking to you and I'm listening, like, you're 30 and it's beautiful. And that mindset, I hope, resonates to those that are watching because it resonated with me. Man, like you said, you get up off that turf. And I just want to tell you that, very honored, to speak with you today. You've touched me. I know you've touched Marcus. That's my brother. So I know, you've touched us. And I know, you're going to touch those, that watch. So I want to thank you so much, for your time. Thank you so much for your time. And we got to get you up here again. We got to get you up here again. We want to check in with you, in a couple and see what you're up to because, honestly, you're part of the True Reform family now, all right? So
Appreciate it.
much love to you.
Can I
Much love
say
to
one more thing?
absolutely.
They say you can't
Absolutely.
teach an old dog new tricks. I ain't no dog.
Drop the mic.
Hey.
True Reform podcast. You have a great evening.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.